what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are feeling great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. I do hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. There's a few things to talk about in this morning's video. Appreciate you guys joining me as we do so. The first thing we'll discuss is the tropics. I am watching for the potential for something to get going here in the Gulf over the next few days. The National Hurricane Center has not highlighted anything as of right now, but we'll speak on it. Could bring some impact as far as a lot of heavy rain, and like I said, just has that shot to develop, so we'll speak on it, get detailed on that, and then we'll continue to talk about the MDR, main development region. Some waves continue to cross the Atlantic, but as of right now, the chances are pretty low for any development for any of these, but we'll speak on that also. And then we'll talk about today's weather. Pretty large area of the country, once again, runs a risk of strong and severe thunderstorm activity and flash flooding, so we'll zoom into a couple states, get very detailed for those states, and just run the higher risk and more high impact weather for today. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the Atlantic. We continue just to watch some waves out here in what we call the MDR, main development region. Let's draw on this a little bit. Let's see if this is going to work, and we're good to go there. So this right here now has just pretty much a 0% chance to develop per the National Hurricane Center. Once upon a time, it was as high as a 20% chance to develop, but it has dropped as this is pretty much running into unfavorable conditions. So, we don't think this is going to survive, but and I would say it doesn't even look as healthy this morning than it did the last few mornings, but this is a tropical wave, and we got some energy out here in the central and eastern Atlantic, and these could, hang tough for a few days, but as they continue to make, their way into the central and then a western Atlantic, I don't think they are going to survive. Too much dry air on top in the Atlantic basin, and there is just too much wind shear, pretty much to sum that up quickly. But to get these back off your screen here, I am watching basically a frontal boundary that will stall out and then kind of drift back north and back south, if you will. Now, this could fire up some energy. We are actually getting some energy right now off the coast of the southeast, but eventually some energy right into here could shift over Florida and then get over the open waters of the Gulf. And then I do think there will be at least a shot of some sort of tropical development into this area over the next, week or so. I would say between now and about Friday. And, we saw this last week with, what was it, Invest 93L. We thought at one point, I really did honestly thought it was going to become Tropical Storm Dexter. It did not. So that is still our next name out of the list of names for this hurricane season. So this will be the first thing we discuss, but just wanted to show you what was going on, kind of all the pieces out here in the Atlantic that we'll be discussing. But I do want to show you Invest 94L, which I'm very surprised I was even dubbed an Invest, now has a 0% chance to develop. So we're not expecting any development out of this, and the chances were never that high in the first place, but did just want to show you the actual graphic from the National Hurricane Center. We have no areas of interest from the area we are about to speak on. That could change, but I could see them never, putting an area of interest out for this, but I could also see them putting like a 10 to 20% chance of tropical development. So let's go over a little bit closer to home first, and then we'll speak on the Atlantic just a little bit further out in the Atlantic, if you will. So we'll start off by looking at the Euro. Now, you're probably just going to see blobs of green and yellow and orange and red, and probably think, what is this? This is nothing that my eyes are exactly going to, but think of that as just tropical moisture. And as we get into about midday, lowering pressure today across the Carolinas, especially as just a cold front swings through and, kind of stalls out. And this is actually, the cold front bringing a lot of cool air this morning across areas of the Northeast, well, pretty much all of the Northeast. But this frontal boundary will sort of just lead to lowering pressure. And as we get into tomorrow morning, this energy will swing over Florida. And at this point, we have energy off the coast of the Southeast in the form of just convection, shower and storm activity, and then over like the eastern Gulf. So as we continue to move, into Wednesday, a lot of shower and storm activity over Georgia and Florida, especially tropical downpours. Now, once this energy sort of concentrates itself over the northern Gulf, you see this big blob of green and yellow and orange. This could be some sort of tropical system trying to get together. And I would say storm system trying to gain tropical characteristics. Will it? Not quite sure. We've seen things like this overachieve and we've seen them underachieve. Last week was a good example of Invest 93L. I would say it didn't underachieve because model guidance, for the most part didn't show it developing, but there was a couple model runs that showed flashes of this becoming a tropical storm, and I think all of us sort of related that to what happened with Chantal a week before that, where we had a strengthening tropical storm making landfall in the Carolinas, and it's just a nice reminder to people like me and anybody that no storm is alike. But I would say watch this. There's some energy swinging across the northern Gulf, and eventually could bring some shower and storm activity across the southern areas of Louisiana once again. And we just got to watch this moisture as it tries to get to Texas eventually, but it looks like it sort of dies out eventually. Now, look at the Euro AI model, shows kind of the same evolution. It normally doesn't show a lot of yellows and oranges and reds on the Euro AI model. But in general, it does show areas of darker green down here, indicating a lot of tropical moisture. This is on a Thursday. This is into our Friday, and it does try to show this upticking as far as strength as it gets closer to like Galveston and Houston, just the Texas coastline, and eventually, whatever it is, makes a technical landfall into Texas. So it is interesting how, once again, the energy is swinging around high pressure, doing like this and doing like that, and then eventually, whatever it is, making some sort of landfall across maybe the western deep south states or the Gulf states into the Texas coastline. So there is other ways to look at this. Another way is the low-level vortice, and this tells us where there's maybe some sort of cyclonic flow or rotation in the atmosphere. And as we move into, say, Thursday, you do see the wind barbs sort of rotating around each other, so a broad, cyclonic rotation here. So is this trying to gain some sort of tropical characteristics? The Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico. I know people are sensitive to that topic. I think that's actually the first time I've had a hiccup. I've been trying to say Gulf to not offend anybody, but you can't completely avoid that. So let's keep it to the Gulf. It does have that rotation here, so that little bit of a cyclonic spin. And by the way, a lot of times I would completely restart the video there, but I am 7 to 8 minutes deep into this. I am not restarting the video just because I said Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to keep on rolling here. But anyways, we continue to get into a Friday morning, and there's still some sort of energy here hanging out. But, there's not a defined, I would say, lower level feature with this. But, you start to see more of the vibrant sort of oranges and reds here. So something does try to get going, kind of gets thrown into Louisiana, but, there's nothing real there, I would say. Now, you look at sort of the precipitation values, and by the way, man, the atmosphere is going to be loaded with moisture across Georgia, Florida, South Carolina today. Precipitation water values well over 2 to 2.5 inches. That means that the atmosphere is completely loaded with moisture. But as we continue to move into a Wednesday morning, a lot of moisture over the northern Gulf, northeast Gulf, and you can just see where the plume of tropical moisture is over the northern Gulf. And anytime you got that kind of moisture in late July, the Gulf is very warm. Sea surface temperatures are in the mid to upper 80s, especially in the northern Gulf. Something could get going. So we just got to watch. It could be sneaky, and we're not going to let this catch us off guard by any means, even if the National Hurricane Center isn't dubbing it an area of interest or anything like that. And listen, that's not a shot at them. I don't blame them. You're not getting a lot of model guidance showing a whole lot, but I do want to, pay a little attention to Texas, just because we know what happened in Central Texas with the awful flooding and all the fatalities. We do need to watch, has this, just plume of moisture Friday and Saturday could make its way into Texas. How far west will this get? Will this even be here? So it does show a lot of moisture moving in. Now, look at the chances of tropical development. This is the chance of a tropical depression developing. And, this kind of a greenish turquoise color, if you will, that's a 30 to 40% chance of a tropical depression developing sometime in the next, several days. So we will watch this. And listen, I will say that even after this, that the pattern still supports a lot of energy getting thrown off the coast here of the southeast or the Gulf and the Gulf Coast. So I don't think... what I'll say this is I could see this being a hurricane season where we get a lot of scenarios where we get what we call homegrown activity. A lot of tropical systems, whether they're weak or strong, that develop from features over land that eventually slide over open water. I could see this being a heavy hurricane season with that. So that's what I would say. But anyways, as far as impacts, rainfall, I'm not seeing anything too crazy, based off the Weather Prediction Center forecast, but there is just 1 to 3 inch rainfall totals from the Carolinas through Florida, through the Gulf coastline, and just a lot of rain. You can see a lot of rain over the open waters of the Gulf down here, but nothing too crazy. And, taking a look at, say, Texas, this is between now and just the next week, and doesn't show a whole lot of rain getting into central Texas. We need to dry out in these areas, so we're definitely not sad about that whatsoever. Now, out here in the tropical Atlantic, I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly because honestly, there's nothing crazy to talk about. The waves could be ongoing. We could have numerous tropical waves out here, but the thing is I don't see these developing. And as we move into this weekend, we'll see an occasional low pressure pop up. We'll occasionally see clusters of dark green and some splashes of yellow and orange and red. I know I always say that, but just think of that as tropical moisture. And here comes a wave, and model guidance is trying to pick up on this one too. But it, this particular run doesn't really develop, but that is a solid looking tropical wave between, day 6 to day 9 or so. And, but none of this really survives. It does try to get whatever's left over of this all the way to the Lesser Antilles after day 10, but there's nothing out there that screams MDR is waking up, the main development region. But I will say, and I would show you other model guidance too, guys, but it doesn't show anything either. This is between now and, say, next Tuesday morning. So between now and the next week, you're not seeing many members, and this makes up 51 members, the EPS does, really developing. It looks like the Eastern Pacific starting to pop off here. But, as we start to get into, say, day 7 to day 10, you start to see more L's being lit up on your screen down here. See it down here? It's picking up on another tropical wave, but there's still not a ton of members, compared to the amount of members in the EPS, which is 51. It's barely even 10. So, that's a 20% showing members. And, as we keep this going here, it does show some of this trying to, get a little bit closer to the Caribbean, but in general, none of these members look very strong. So now that's an update on the tropics. Let's go on and break down today's weather. Let's get this in motion. It was kind of glitching on me earlier when I was preparing these videos. So a few things going on. We got a big cluster of rain and storms up here in the Dakotas. Line of storms once again hitting western Minnesota. You guys dealt with this yesterday too. We got some flash flood warnings ongoing in areas of Kansas. Cluster of rain ain't moving a whole lot. Looks like we are getting some showers here in central Texas right now, but nothing too crazy. Some flow across the western U.S. and, check out the, just clusters of showers and storms off the coast of the southeast and over northern Florida, a little bit over the northeast Gulf. So, that's kind of the beginning stages of what we just broke down with the tropics and the northern Gulf and stuff like that. So this is current conditions. The northeast, beautiful, beautiful weather, man. I just looked at the current temperatures. I'm about to show it to you here in a second. And you guys are in the 40s, 50s, and even areas in the 60s. There's lower humidity, and it's nice. What else can you ask for in the dog days of summer, right? But the Storm Prediction Center outlook, there is a marginal risk across South Carolina, Georgia, a very small section of northern Florida and eastern Alabama. So watch out for some of these storms packing a punch today. But the bigger severe weather threat is certainly to the north. So, marginal risk going from Montana, areas of Wyoming, dropping down into northeast Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, all the way to the UP of Michigan. But we do have a slight risk in this area. This could be a pretty hefty severe weather threat today. Pretty large area, runs at least a 2% risk of a tornado. That's pretty large. Wind threat, if you live in this yellow area, that is a 15% risk of damaging winds, producing maybe 55, 60 miles per hour. But you look right here, the black outline region, it's a 10% risk of significant severe wind gusts. That's winds exceeding 75, 80 miles per hour. As we continue to move in these areas, there's Fargo. Guys, this does include Minneapolis. So big risk at Duluth too. Risk of significant severe winds, and then the hail threat, risk of very large hail also. Once again, that yellow area is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then in the black outline region, that is a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. So just to kind of move through these areas nice and slow for you folks, because I know it can be a little hard to see on your screen. But moving past this, there's kind of a trifecta, if you will, of a slight risk of excessive rainfall. One up here in the upper Midwest, 15% risk of flash flooding there. One down here in South Carolina, areas of North Carolina and Georgia. This does include Columbia over to Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, pretty much the entire Carolina coastline, Orangeburg, Florence, Savannah. You guys, 15% risk of flash flooding in these regions. And zooming back out, we do have a risk of flash flooding across southwest Texas, across New Mexico, areas of Arizona, into southern areas of Colorado. Now, southeast today, broad look at things. We get to about midday, some thunderstorms possible in Middle Tennessee, northern Alabama, a little bit of storm activity also in, southwest North Carolina. But I think the main show will be in South Carolina, Georgia, into Florida, as just system dipping down through, lowering pressure, going to allow for enough lift for thunderstorms and just widespread thunderstorm action across these areas. Now, of course, let's take a closer look at, say, Georgia and South Carolina. We get to about 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Big storms begin to bubble up just inland off the coast, if you will. Well, just inland inside the coast, if that makes any sense. But some storms popping up around Columbia, near Augusta, Savannah. Pretty much, I think everybody, along the South Carolina coastline, hour inland, has a good shot at thunderstorms today. And then as we start to get to dinner time, widespread in the low country of South Carolina. And, there'll be numerous thunderstorms possible in the Midlands of South Carolina, some pop-up downpours in northern Georgia, but especially southern Georgia. A lot of rain possible. And it really shows it getting going later tonight, closer to midnight, some heavy downpours, near Valdosta, for example. And then things might begin to calm down as we start to get into tomorrow morning, which it normally does with the loss of daytime heating. But how much rainfall could you guys get in some of these areas? Columbia, let's go to the next 48 hours. Maybe an inch. Augusta, same thing. I think you can get more rain than this in Charleston and Myrtle Beach, but it does show a lot of this storm activity firing off the coastline. About an hour inside the coastline. So, 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain possible, like like Orangeburg, the Moncks Corner, Somerville, Conway, these areas, same thing with Georgia, just these purple to red areas, 1 to 2 inches of rain possible, a lot of rain, just inland. So, taking a look at Florida, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., just numerous thunderstorms popping up across the peninsula. Storms possible also up here in the Panhandle, really summer-like pulse-type storms. So really, it could storm anywhere across these regions. Flash flooding, strong to severe storms are possible too, especially the further north you get in Florida. These storms could pack more of a punch. But we get into 10 p.m., 11 p.m., then we get overnight. Storms are still going. A lot of this energy is starting to swing over northern Florida. Remember, we talked about that in the beginning of the video. So a lot of tropical moisture swinging across the state of Florida and eventually getting into the Northeast Gulf tomorrow morning. So a lot of rain could fall, guys. I mean, this is how much rainfall could happen between now and about 8 p.m. tomorrow. And folks, I mean, in these red areas, that's 2 to 3 inches of rain. Some areas over 4 inches of rain between the Bend and Tampa. So really anywhere in Florida could get 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain, but especially the northern half of Florida. A lot of rain possible. It's just a lot of energy swings through. So be aware of that. Now, the Northeast. Man, am I jealous of you guys this morning. I hope you guys got a nice fall candle lit. Just a beautiful, beautiful, phenomenal morning you're waking up to. Temperatures in the 40s, the 50s. Of course, the higher up you get in the Adirondacks, the Berkshires, the Green and White Mountains, Tuck Hill Plateau, all the mountain range, the Catskills, the colder it's going to get. You're probably in the 40s, but even in the valleys, the 50s. Very, very nice temperatures out here. Even in these areas that are only in the 60s in New Jersey and, Long Island maybe, but you got the lower humidity, right? Let's look at dew points. Nice. Nice conditions. So hope you're enjoying your nice, pleasant fall-like morning. The dog days of summer. But as far as what could happen weather-wise today from stuff falling from the sky, nothing. Your air mass is dry, so therefore you're not going to get any thunderstorms. It truly will be a phenomenal day across the Northeast. You guys enjoy it. But the South Central U.S., not really anything to speak on, guys. Just plentiful moisture popping up across New Mexico, Colorado, showers and storms. Severe weather threat, not huge, but there is a risk of flash flooding. But it really congeals up in this area right here, like New Mexico, Colorado. So just be mindful of a flash flooding threat there. A lot of action over the next 24 hours. In fact, I'm going to do something on the fly for you guys. And just zoom in to, say, New Mexico. This is how much rain you're expecting between now and about 6 p.m. tomorrow. It doesn't show a whole lot, but a half inch here is a lot, especially north of Santa Fe. And taking a look at, say, Colorado, same time frame. Good bit of rain could fall. It doesn't take much out here, but, it's funny. The HER model is showing what would look like more rain than this. So, but I did want to just show it to you. But the north central U.S., big line of storms will continue to push through northern Minnesota, and then more convection will fire up. Could have an area of storms that fires up in central Iowa. Watch out, Ames, Des Moines, later this afternoon into this evening. And then just a lot of storms could rumble over Lake Superior. So if you live out here, some of these island areas, the peninsula there, watch out for some storms. I mean, this is late tonight. This is like midnight. We got a lot of storms rumbling through overnight across the Dakotas, northern Minnesota, and then we get into tomorrow morning. Once again, this might be your third morning in a row that you're dealing with a line of storms across western Minnesota. So it's just been line of storm after line of storm. But a closer look at all these areas, of course, North Dakota. Just watch out for these cells right here. These could produce tornadoes, Minot, Williston, Dickinson, Bismarck. These storms could produce all hazards. Damaging winds could be high. Large hail, tornado risk, and these will cruise, west to east. And it does look like the northern half of North Dakota looks more dangerous, severe weather-wise, than the southern half, at least initially. And then the storms will fire up everywhere. This is 11 p.m., midnight. Look at these storms from Jamestown to West Fargo. These storms could really get going. You see the circles coming off these indicating more intense updrafts, things like that. So continue to move forward here, and it'll just continue to storm a lot overnight. A lot of heavy rainfall could happen too. Rainfall between now and the next 36 hours or so. A lot of heavy rain, especially in the eastern areas of North Dakota. South Dakota, that's what you're looking like. Starting off around midday, some shower activity possible. And then we get into 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Some storm activity possible north of Rapid City, and then we could get some cells forming late at night. Just doesn't look as worrisome as it does maybe in North Dakota. And then, Minnesota, big line of storms will continue to surge through the state. How much will these survive into like Duluth, northeast Minnesota? Not quite sure. By about lunchtime, this could potentially be what the radar looks like if you're living in northeast Minnesota. Looks like we have a little bit of a clearing this afternoon. We'll see if that actually happens. Then this evening, more activity begins to enter the northwestern areas of the state. And once again, we're just going to get a lot of storm activity for the northern areas of Minnesota late tonight. This is 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Look at these big storms rumbling through the northern country of Minnesota. And then we're just going to wake up again to just another big line of storms sweeping through central and northern Minnesota. So just be aware of that. And then the last area we'll look at is Wisconsin, the UP. It doesn't show a whole lot for you guys, but you guys do have a marginal risk of severe weather. But we cruise all the way into the overnight hours. It finally shows some storms, bang, popping up around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in the state of Wisconsin. But outside of that, it doesn't show a whole lot. But, we know that model guidance doesn't always, do the best job. But, the western U.S., as we've already mentioned, a lot of shower and storm activity across the Four Corners region, especially Colorado and New Mexico. But, Arizona could get a lot of moisture also, guys. So especially and mainly the eastern areas of Arizona. Big storms are possible in Wyoming, especially Montana. Be aware of that. And, just taking a closer look at Montana here. 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., storms cruising southwest and northeast across these areas. Billings, Miles City, be careful. And any communities in central to eastern Montana could get some big storms. They'll just be hit or miss, right? And then Wyoming, kind of the same deal. Lunchtime, 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Watch out near Sheridan, Gillette. Some big storms are possible. Looks like the southern areas of Wyoming, not as widespread. Temperatures, beautiful day in the Northeast. 60s and 70s for highs, even areas that get into the 80s, lower humidity. Even a little bit of a break from the heat in Virginia and North Carolina. Once you get into South Carolina, it's definitely not going to be as hot as yesterday. Just about hit 100 degrees. Well, it did hit 100 degrees at my house. I think my weather station said 101. But the deep south, just hot and humid. And that's one thing I haven't really spent a lot of time on. I do apologize. But, it's... I'll be honest, guys. Sometimes when I'm doing these videos, and before I get into that, let's show the western U.S. This is the heat out here. Sometimes it's hard to talk about the same thing over and over again. But I feel that it's my job, to come on here every single morning. And even though I'm repeating myself in some cases, one thing I take a lot of pride in, good, healthy pride, right, is being relentlessly consistent with my videos. I don't like missing a video, and I don't like just... For example, I would love to just come on here and just talk about the tropics and head on out. Video would probably only be 10 to 15 minutes long if, there's pretty much what there is to talk about right now, and then I can head out with my day. But I don't want to lose the routine of giving you guys a daily forecast, and unless, like I said, you guys know that's been tuning in for a while, when we're really tracking something significant in our high-impact system, then we, tend to sort of spend a lot less detail on that daily forecast, or sometimes we have to skip it altogether. But I always like to try to include that, and it does just stink talking about the same thing over and over again. Shower and storm activity. Even when you're passionate about talking about the weather, sometimes that gets old, right? So, talking about heat probably has to be, I'll be real with you, the lamest thing to talk about. But people rely on you. So, just know that it's going to continue to be hot for the foreseeable future. And in fact, I'll show it to you here. This is Big Ridge is probably going to position itself more so over the middle of the country. Therefore, this is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook between the 27th and the last day of July. Just going for a high chance of above average temperatures in these red colors here. So unfortunately, the only areas to look to escape the brutalness of the heat is the Northeast, where frequent troughing will happen, and maybe the western U.S., but it just continues to look very hot. And we even look at a 3 to 4 week outlook, and this goes from the 2nd to the 15th, and this can change some, but it just continues to look hot. This might just be your classic summer across areas, of the country. There's been a lot, I'll be honest, over the last, I think several summers, a few summers at least, everybody always says August is the worst month. That's one of the most common things you hear, at least in South Carolina. And I know August can be very hot, the hottest month, certainly for states like Texas. For whatever reason, Texas just bakes alive in August. So everybody has their different takes on that, but August is probably the most common month I hear that can be the hottest month. And I'll be honest, over the last several years, August has not been that bad here in South Carolina. We say the same thing, but, we're getting that classic brutal heat in late July, the dog days of summer, and it looks like it's going to be brutally hot for at least several days in August. So we'll dive more into this, especially if there's absolutely nothing to talk about with the tropics. And honestly, there isn't a whole lot to talk about, but just it's just been the same kind of rinse and repeat type stuff for about 3 to 4 months, guys. And that's why the channel has been slow, because people aren't really trying to tune in to just hearing about daily afternoon showers and storms. But the people who do, as always, I appreciate the heck out of you. But that's all I got, guys. Just rambling at this point. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. And we'll do it again tomorrow morning. We'll talk soon. God bless.